Have you ever wondered just how big an army can get? Imagine a sea of soldiers so massive that it could cover entire cities, each one ready to defend, conquer, or make history. Across centuries, empires and nations have put together armies on a scale that's almost impossible to believe. But which one was the biggest? Today, we're counting down the top 10 largest armies ever assembled. Each army on this list didn't just stand for numbers. They stood for power, strategy, and some of the biggest showdowns the world has ever seen. And I guarantee, the number one army on our list will leave you speechless. So stick around, you won't believe how huge some of these forces were, and the stories behind them will keep you hooked. At number 10, we have the Tang Dynasty, with 575,000 troops in 800 AD. The Tang Dynasty built one of the world's most powerful militaries to control vast territories and suppress constant uprisings. Their empire spanned from modern-day China to Central Asia, and defending it required an immense force. The Tang army wasn't just about numbers. They were a mix of elite cavalry, archers, and well-trained infantry, each unit designed to expand and defend the empire. This massive force allowed the Tang to create one of the longest stretches of peace in Chinese history. But as rebellions mounted and resources stretched thin, even 500,000 soldiers couldn't hold the empire together forever. Eventually, their size became a vulnerability, leading to the Tang's decline. At number 9 is the Jin Dynasty, which assembled a 600,000-strong army in the 1200s to defend its northern borders. The Jin Dynasty faced near-constant threats from the neighboring Song Dynasty and the emerging Mongol Empire. To survive, they fortified their defenses and built a highly organized army. Unlike other dynasties, the Jin relied on a mix of local soldiers and well-paid mercenaries. Their army was known for its discipline and ability to fend off larger forces, often using swift cavalry attacks and fortified positions to hold off invasions. But while they held their ground for decades, the rise of the Mongols eventually overwhelmed them, and the Jin dynasty fell under the sheer pressure of relentless Mongol assaults. At number 8, we have the Sui dynasty, with an army of 650,000 soldiers around 600 AD. They were determined to unify China after centuries of division, and they needed a colossal force to achieve it. With this massive army, they launched brutal campaigns against rivals, reclaiming lost territories and re-establishing central authority. They also invested heavily in infrastructure, with their military labor used to build the Grand Canal, a crucial waterway that connected the empire's north and south. But their military ambition came at a cost. After years of grueling campaigns and heavy taxes to support the army, public resentment grew, eventually leading to uprisings that toppled the Sui. Their enormous army helped unify China, but its demands ultimately drained the dynasty's strength. At number 7 is the Song dynasty, which by the year 1000 AD had expanded its forces to 810,000 soldiers. The Song were facing powerful enemies to the north, like the Khitans and Jurchens, and needed a well-equipped, highly trained army to defend their borders. What set the Song military apart wasn't just its size, but its technological edge. They were one of the first to use gunpowder in battle. The Song army developed early firearms and explosive devices, making them pioneers in military technology. Despite their innovative tactics, however, the Song's reliance on defensive strategies meant they often struggled in prolonged conflicts, especially against aggressive northern invaders. Eventually, despite their size and technology, they fell to the Mongol Empire, showing that even the most advanced armies have limits. At number 6 is the Mongol Empire, which amassed an army of around 900,000 troops by 1300 AD. Unlike traditional empires, the Mongols relied on their fast-moving, highly skilled cavalry to conquer and control the largest contiguous land empire in history, stretching from China to Eastern Europe. Mongol soldiers were expert horsemen and archers, known for their hit-and-run tactics that could dismantle larger, slower armies. Their strategy was simple but effective. Move quickly, strike hard, and never allow the enemy a chance to recover. Under leaders like Genghis Khan and Kublai Khan, the Mongols became a nearly unstoppable force, defeating armies much larger than themselves. The Mongol military machine proved that speed, discipline, and tactics could sometimes outweigh sheer numbers. At number 5, we have the Ming Dynasty, which by the 1500s had assembled a staggering 1.3 million troops. The Ming rose to power by overthrowing the Mongols, and to keep them and other invaders out, they built one of the largest standing armies in history. Their forces were spread across vast fortifications, including sections of what we now know as the Great Wall of China. The Ming military wasn't just about defense. They also fought campaigns in places like Vietnam and Mongolia to secure their borders. This army, however, was difficult to maintain, requiring huge resources and manpower. As corruption and mismanagement grew within the ranks, the Ming found themselves struggling to keep up with the rising threat of the Manchu forces, who eventually overran the weakened empire. The Ming army was massive, but size alone couldn't protect it from internal collapse. At number 4 is Nazi Germany during World War II, with a total force of 11 million soldiers. Driven by a quest for domination, Germany rapidly mobilized one of the largest and most technologically advanced armies of its time. This force swept through Europe with blitzkrieg tactics, conquering Poland, France, and other countries at unprecedented speed. Germany's army was a mix of seasoned soldiers, new recruits, and highly trained specialists, equipped with state-of-the-art tanks, aircraft, and artillery. However, their rapid expansion and the brutal, prolonged conflicts on multiple fronts, especially against the Soviet Union, began to drain their resources and morale. The tide eventually turned, and despite their numbers, Nazi Germany's forces were ultimately overwhelmed by the Allies. Their army was vast, but their reach exceeded their grasp. Taking the third spot is the Soviet Union, with an incredible 12.5 million soldiers during World War II. Facing invasion from Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union launched one of the largest mobilizations in history. Soviet forces fought in brutal conditions on the Eastern Front, enduring one of the harshest winters on record and some of the bloodiest battles ever, like the Siege of Leningrad and the Battle of Stalingrad. The Red Army's size and resilience turned the tide of the war in Europe. Soviet soldiers, many of them civilians drafted to fight, faced overwhelming odds, yet pushed back German forces all the way to Berlin. This army was massive, but its strength lay in the determination of millions who fought to protect their homeland. Despite staggering losses, the Soviet Union emerged as a superpower, proving that sheer force, when paired with unbreakable resolve, could change the course of history. At number 2, we have the United States, which mobilized 12.3 million troops during World War II. In response to the attacks on Pearl Harbor and the global threat of the Axis powers, the U.S. expanded its military on a scale never seen before. This force was spread across two major theaters, Europe and the Pacific, fighting on land, sea, and air. The U.S. military brought immense industrial power to the war, producing weapons, vehicles, and supplies at an unmatched rate. With a vast Navy and Air Force supporting ground troops, the U.S. played a crucial role in turning the tide against both Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. By the war's end, the U.S. had become a global military superpower. Their massive force marked a new era in warfare, showing that logistics, technology, and manpower together could shape the world order. At number 1, the largest army ever assembled belongs to North Korea, with a staggering 9.5 million troops in active, reserve, and paramilitary forces. In the 2000s, this tiny nation committed an extraordinary portion of its population to military service. For North Korea, having a large army is about survival. With tensions high between North and South Korea, this force serves as both a deterrent and a symbol of strength. North Korea's military includes everything from frontline soldiers to paramilitary units, and almost every citizen undergoes military training. However, despite its size, the North Korean military struggles with outdated equipment and limited resources. It may be the largest force on paper, but it lacks the advanced technology and firepower of other nations. Still, with millions ready to fight at any moment, North Korea's military remains one of the most intimidating forces, highlighting just how far the country is willing to go to project power. These armies were some of the largest and most powerful the world has ever seen, from ancient empires defending their borders to modern superpowers mobilizing on a global scale. Each of these forces shaped the fate of nations and left their mark on history. But as we've seen, size alone isn't always enough to secure victory. It takes strategy, resources, and often a relentless determination to overcome immense challenges. Think about the impact these armies had, not just on the battlefield, but on the world that followed. What will future armies look like, and how will they influence the course of history? If you enjoyed this journey through the world's biggest armies, be sure to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments which army's story surprised you the most.